everyone, it's Kat Bat from Digital Leopard, and today we've got with us Maximillian Rendall, a magician. Maximilian, could you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your business?
Sure, and feel free to call me Max. It's Maximilian can be a bit of a tongue twister.
Thank you.
So I'm a full-time magician, and I was performing regularly at various venues for birthday parties, weddings, that sort of thing, up until, of course, the coronavirus pandemic happened and the lockdown was initiated. And I've actually, as a result, lost a few bookings, which is hardly surprising because now's not really the time to be having large get-togethers and having someone going from going from table to table, sort of touching lots of things is a bit of a nerve-wracking experience for people at these times. And so now I'm focused primarily on doing classes online and giving sort of magic seminars to anyone who's interested.
That's an excellent idea because everybody wants to learn about magic, and that's definitely something you can do via Zoom or webinars. However, I thought you were bound by a code. As a magician, you were not allowed to reveal any secrets. Is that not the case?
Oh no, that is very much the case, and I'm a member of the Magic Circle, which is, that we like to say we're the most prestigious magic club in the world and one of the oldest. And there is a magician's oath and there is a magician's code, and they're sort of variations on the same topic. And what they are is, the agreement that you never reveal the secrets or perform a magic trick when it's not properly prepared to be shown to an audience. But the way it works with the Magic Circle is, of course, you're not supposed to be revealing magic tricks. But lots of magicians obviously have books and DVDs and things teaching magic.
Yeah, I did wonder how that works actually, that's true.
Well, so the way the Magic Circle do it is they're, sorry, I can't recall exactly the wording that they use in their sort of code of conduct. But essentially it boils down to, you have to put in place a barrier between them knowing the secrets. The idea being that they have to actively be searching for the answers. So if you were to buy a magic book, then you've crossed that boundary. You've made a commitment to
Oh, I see. So if they buy the course, then they make the commitment.
Yeah, then buying the course is their sort of commitment to the cause, as it were. So, for example, I got in quite a lot of trouble because I did a TV commercial for Sony where they used a high-speed, slow-motion camera to film me doing magic. And then, so I did get in a lot of trouble. I got suspended from the Magic Circle for a year. I got a verbal and a written warning. I had to plead my case to the Council of Magicians. I explained the situation.
Wow, that sounds as serious as Doctor's Board.
It was quite serious. I got a lot of hate online for it, a lot of abuse. And I understand why, because and obviously they pointed out that the problem was that someone who wasn't actively searching for the answers or the secrets behind the magic might come across the video, watch it, and learn something they weren't looking to learn. And therein lies the problem. There's got to be some reason, some sort of commitment from them to learning the answers rather than just handing them out.
It's a bit like with the magic of Christmas, right? You don't want to go telling kids that there is no Santa Claus, but eventually they find out.
Yeah, they can figure it out for themselves if they try hard enough, but they have to actively be trying themselves to find the answers rather than just stumbling across the answer because it's plastered across a large board somewhere in the street.
That's fair. I think that's fair. Well, coming back to the business side of things, you've had an amazing idea how to take your business online. A big question there is in terms of pricing. I'm not asking about the figures, but like whether you are pricing your services at a similar level that you would if you were doing it offline.
No, so I've massively reduced the price for the online lessons because there's obviously a large component of magic is being able to, particularly when teaching, because I do close-up magic.
Yeah.
Which is, a deck of cards in the hands or coins or sort of sponge balls or little bits and pieces like that. And of course, that all works really well in person. It's a lot harder to translate it across Zoom or something. So okay. It's not quite half, but it is a very reduced fee for what I'm offering now.
Okay, I guess that's a valid reason because, for example, we are doing puppy school online and the classes are brilliant. I mean, I did not think it could be done so well without the trainer actually handling our dogs, but she explains it so well and shows the videos that actually it doesn't really matter. So with the magic, you have to kind of manually show them how to handle the cards. Is that the problem?
Yeah, so I sort of, because before everything happened, I was in the process of trying to set things up to film a show reel and get some footage of me doing magic. So I've actually got quite a bit of equipment around the room at the moment. My laptop's currently propped up on a special stand that holds it nice and high, which is why I've got this sort of angle rather than straight ahead. And the way the setup works, it means I can actually adjust the camera so it's pointing straight down, and I can perform the magic kind of from the point of view I'm seeing, so my students can see my hands from the same angle that they would see if they're doing it themselves.
I see. Okay. Well, with you being so creative, I wonder if you've got any piece of advice for other entrepreneurs.
Well, I mean, obviously it depends what sort of service you're offering, and I mean, you know, as I mentioned when we first met, interestingly enough, I'm actually getting more work at the moment than I had beforehand. Obviously, it's not as high paying because it's the lessons rather than me performing to a few hundred people at a time.
Yeah.
But at the same time, realizing that, okay, if this avenue is closed, the live aspect is no longer available, just looking at how I can push things online. So hence why I started doing the online courses, and why I'm now trying to build a subscription service that people can access even if I'm not available, and doing things that way. And I think pretty much any service that anyone's offering these days can be taken online. You've just got to really accept that in these times, okay, so that side of things is completely closed.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, how else can I, how can I change my business model? What other avenues are still open to me? And you've got to look at things that you may have never considered before, because I was offering magic lessons before and there wasn't a huge amount of traction, but now, because I've had to sort of make the online work so well, it's actually gaining a lot more interest than it had before.
And you can reach audience that's overseas, you know, at the other side of the globe.
One of my students is actually a gentleman over in Los Angeles.
Wow.
And I've got a few other people who are, so I've got one fellow who's in Israel. And so there's a lot more of a global reach, and there's a lot of advantages being able to take it online. And I mean, I haven't had a chance to test yet, but I'm certainly sure it'll hopefully influence my performances live as well, in terms of realizing how to make sure everyone can see what I'm doing clearly.
I wanted to ask you actually, because I spoke to Bronwyn, who is an opera producer, and she is doing amazing sort of opera evenings online. Maybe you could team up with her and offer, like, you know, high-end magic show for people's dinners and stuff. So sort of the magic night in, rather than you know, going out for a great dinner party.
Yes, well, I mean, certainly there's some room for doing that with Zoom, but obviously to do it live, I know many magicians always struggle to find a musical side to their magic, because obviously you want to work with someone who can read what's happening, because obviously with magic, sometimes there's a flow to it and the flow can be interrupted for whatever reason. And if you've got a pre-recorded music track playing over the top, it's not going to be able to adjust to the fact that suddenly you're actually now a few beats behind or a few beats ahead. And so keeping an eye out for someone like that who could react to what's happening as I'm performing is always something I'd be interested in.
Okay, well, I will connect you guys. Hopefully that would be.
Thank you very much.
No worries. But yeah, it could be something that, you know, she has not reduced her prices. She is providing an amazing service. She's just doing it via Zoom. So there are options there as well, I think.
Yeah.
Good. Is there anything else that you would like to add?
I mean, in terms of, I mean, obviously I had a few look at the questions you might be asking me and things like that. And I think, I know one of the questions that did stick out to me is any advice to sort of entrepreneurs or people looking to do their own thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, the only reason I can't offer that much advice, but the question still interested me, is because I never actively wanted to become a magician when I was growing up. Interesting enough, it was never planned. I mean, if you've ever met a magician, I can guarantee you've heard them tell the story of how they were 3 years old bouncing on their grandfather's knee, and how he showed them a trick and they were forever obsessed and they could never look back. I didn't learn my first magic trick properly until I was 20.
Oh wow! So what was your dream job then? What did you imagine that you would do when you were a kid?
I think it was mainly play video games.
Okay, fair enough.
So I learned this one little trick off YouTube, and just suddenly became obsessed with learning more and more magic. But it was never meant to be a career; it was meant to be a hobby. And I think there's a wonderful piece of advice that is kind of going around, which is when you're growing up, you should try and learn 3 hobbies. One to keep you creative, one to make you money, and one to keep you in shape. And magic for me kind of encapsulated 2 of those at once. And it was meant just to be a hobby to keep me creative, but then it started making me money. And I kind of made the transition, not straight away. I think that's the mistake some entrepreneurs make, is they kind of go, oh, this is great, I've got to do this full time. And if you can afford to do that and you've got the savings, that's a fantastic thing to do. But obviously most of us don't have that advantage. I certainly didn't. So I actually did it on the side while still working as a bartender. And it wasn't until I got offered my first job as a magician when I actually didn't realize that's what he was doing. I thought he was offering me a job as a bartender in his restaurant. I took the job and I wasn't making much money, but I had enough to sort of protect myself and to keep going. And I was studying at university, so I had that advantage as well as sort of accommodation and things. Yeah. And then slowly it kind of grew and grew. And once it reached a point where it was self-sustaining, that's when I could make the switch full time and then only do magic.
That's a good way to do it, to kind of have something else to fall back on, because I think people burn out too easily because they put sort of all their eggs in one basket, and then it just becomes too hard. And yeah, no,
and obviously, it takes a while to see any return on that initial sort of investment from your time. And you, as you say, you can burn out quite easily if you throw all of your passion and energy into one project and it doesn't start paying out quick enough. And if you start chasing the money, then you'll lose the love, you'll lose why you started doing it in the first place.
Absolutely. Or even when you will face hardship, because you can love what you're doing, but in the end of the day, you have to pay bills. So you will feel a little bit disheartened if you can't cover your bills, right?
Yes, that can start to wear on you quite thin quite quickly, because that certainly does start to worry at the back of the mind, going, oh, how am I going to make it to the end of the month, and so on and so forth. And there were definitely times when I wasn't making enough work that I picked up other work just to fill in the time, because obviously when I was doing magic, the only times people want to book you, particularly at the early stages, was on a Friday or Saturday night, and then I had 5 days a week where I wasn't doing anything. So I had other jobs that I did on the side, and it wasn't, now I'm very lucky that I'm at a stage where I'm completely self-sustaining of magic and through no other form of income. But at the same time, I am looking to diversify. But I'm looking at other avenues, other things I can do in the background that don't impede on what I'm doing, and I'm learning a lot about how to make money online through other avenues and sort of online courses and things. So there is certainly scope for diversification.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Max. That was so useful. I'm sure others will benefit from your advice as well.
Well, I certainly hope so, and thank you for having me.
No worries.